Hello. If you're able to, please close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Take another deep breath in. And another breath out. You can open your eyes now. My name is David, and welcome to Mindful Moments. How are you doing today? I am very well, thank you, and very happy to be here with you again. I am in a great mood and in a great place at the moment. I'm finally in the flow of things. I'm finally in a flow state, operating the way I like to operate, doing loads of things for myself, the things that I need to do for myself and the things that I like to do for myself. I'm in a really good place. I have been reading plenty of things in my evenings, things that have been on my list for a long time. You know, you have your watch list and your to read list and your all those kinds of things. Even on social media, I have playlists of to watch later, to see later, and I never get to later. But I am addressing later now. I'm in the pattern of doing that at the moment, and it's really great. It's really fantastic. Obviously, at some point, those lists will be built up again. But then again, you know what? Life isn't for being as efficient as possible. It's for enjoying things. So I'm glad I'm returning to things or finding things that I'm enjoying that I set aside for myself before. That's a bit of an aside, actually. That's not anything to do with today's episode. I just wanted to let you know. Yeah. So today, what I'd actually like to talk about is doing things. Because as I said, one of the biggest reasons I'm in a great place at the moment is because I'm in a very good pattern of doing things and addressing things. When I was younger, my parents always used to say to me, if you're going to do something, do it properly. And that phrase used to come up a lot at times like when I was asked to do dishes or to sweep the floor or to clean the house. And the way I'd be doing the job, I'd say I was playing on the PlayStation and I was interrupted and I was told, go and clean the kitchen. I'd be cleaning the kitchen and I'd be doing it in a very lackluster fashion because I wasn't enthusiastic about the job. Who would be? I was on the PlayStation. And one of my parents would tell me, if you're going to do this, do it properly. In that context, that phrase didn't mean very much to me because the reason I was going to do it wasn't because I wanted to, it was because I had no choice. But that phrase and that philosophy is something that stuck with me and something that was continually repeated to me because it had so much meaning and so much value. I didn't know how much value that phrase had when I was younger. Now, as an adult, with context and knowing what it's like to have to live life for yourself and take care of yourself, I think that's actually one of the most valuable phrases in my arsenal that I always return to. If you're going to do something, do it properly. It comes in so useful and so handy when there are things that I have to do, things that no one else can do for me, and things that I've chosen to do. When it gets to points in those journeys or doing those things that I don't feel like doing that thing anymore, but I know it's something I need to do, I return to that because that is a philosophy. That means I always give things what they deserve and I always account for myself very well. Accountability is huge for growth. If we're not accountable to ourselves, if we're not honest with ourselves and don't give ourselves and others the best version of ourselves, it limits our growth. It limits what we're able to do and it limits, the contentment we're able to obtain for ourselves. Being accountable to myself is one of the most valuable things I've been able to do to build up a level of accountability to myself where I can keep my word to myself when I say I'm going to do certain things. If you're going to do it properly. Pretty much everything I do revolves around that philosophy. And though that sounds like a phrase that brings us obligation, it's actually one that really sets us free. I'll explain. There are many things that we take on in life that are our choices. It feels like we've had to do them but really it's been the best of the options that's been available. And I've talked about this before, the difference between a choice and an option, and knowing when to identify something as a choice. Good example is university. When I went to university, I studied English and French. About 2 years into my degree, I realized that I'd rather have done something creative, something more creative, I guess, something towards drama or the arts. I'm very grateful I did the degree I did. And I think it was actually very valuable for me to stick with that, even knowing that maybe I would have chosen differently, and still do my very best at something I wasn't 100% passionate about. Because in life, we're going to have to do that a lot. Even when you get to the things you're passionate about, there'll be parts of that you're not passionate about, and you just have to do the job. So I'm glad that's a lesson that I've been able to learn through my experiences. I digress. My degree was a 4-year course. About 2 years into that course, I thought, I don't really love this. I'd rather be doing something else. But I had 2 years left. And I'd chosen that course. That course was my choice. And at that point, I was doing it. And to neglect my studies and to not do my degree properly would have been a disservice to me. It would have been a disservice to my lecturers. It would have been a disservice to people who wanted the place on the course that I had and didn't get it. It would have been a disservice to everybody involved. And so I owed it to myself, first and foremost. Secondarily, everybody else around me, to do what I was doing properly. And when it comes to things like that, it's really important to remind ourselves that our choices are exactly that, our choices. We made the choices that got ourselves in those positions. And it's up to us to tackle them. And there's no one else that can do them for us. There was no one else who could sit my exams for me. There was no one else who could study for me. So I had the knowledge. I had to do it for myself. And if I was going to do it at all, I was going to do it properly. If you're going to spend the time doing something, it's worth doing it properly. Otherwise, why do it at all? On the other hand, that thought, if you're going to do it properly, makes us think carefully, or should make us think carefully, about the obligations we do decide to take on. As I said, we're always accountable for our choices. We always have a level of accountability for our choices. So if I say I'm going to take something on, I have a responsibility to take that thing on and do it to the best of my ability, whatever that thing happens to be. If I tell a friend, let's meet up next week on Wednesday, it's my responsibility to be accountable, show up next week on Wednesday. If I know I'm going to be tired, or if I know I've got a lot on right now, or if I just don't feel like doing a certain thing, I'm not going to tell somebody, let's do this next week Wednesday, and then cancel on Tuesday evening. And that is something that's really, that is something that I think we all have a little bit of trouble with when we agree to a certain thing at a time. And then when it comes to following through, circumstances might have changed. We might feel anxious about it. We might feel nervous about it. And we very much feel like dropping out. That's been something that's really, I've struggled with that, I think, all my life, really. Whenever I make plans, at the time I'm very enthusiastic. Then it gets around it and I just get overwhelmed by everything else that's going on. Work tends to overwhelm me very quickly. Fatigue tends to overwhelm me very quickly. And I'm not as good as I think I am a lot of the time at identifying anxiety. So I'll feel anxious about something and try and attribute a logical explanation to it, rather than realizing I just feel anxious generally at the moment. And actually, I need to follow through with this thing because that's the only thing that's going to quiet the noise. All that said, where this applies, if you're going to do something, do it properly, is I think very hard about the things I agree to do. My personal philosophy is if I'm going to do something, I will do it properly. And that means if I know something involves a level of responsibility that I don't want, I won't commit to it because I know I'm not going to give that thing what it deserves. Sometimes that looks like turning down certain opportunities that people might not understand my reasoning for. Sometimes that might look like declining certain invitations or not putting myself in a place basically where I know I'm not going to be able to offer the best of myself. And that can be a really difficult thing to do. It often feels like letting people down if you know you're capable of doing something, but equally don't feel the desire to do it or know you won't be able to follow through on it the way that you would like to at the time. In nature, I'm capable of doing a lot of things. But sometimes the timing isn't correct. Sometimes I just know, for whatever reason, at that time, I can't give this thing the effort or an energy that it deserves. And I like to do things properly if I'm to do them. So I won't do this. Explaining that in the moment feels a lot like letting people down. And because I don't like to let people down, I've been very guilty in the past of agreeing to certain things. And then when the thing arrives, dropping out or not being able to execute it properly because I agreed to do it when I shouldn't have. So the whole thought of, if you're going to do it properly, it's twofold. Am I going to do it? And if the answer to that is yes, it must be done properly. In that, am I going to do it? There's a level of choice. Am I going to agree to doing this thing? And if it's no, that needs to be communicated clearly and properly in a way that will be understood by the person. And I need to understand my reasoning myself. It's a hard one. It's a really hard one to balance. But once you get the hang of it, and I very much, most of the time, do have the hang of it, it really helps me in terms of deciding what responsibilities to take on. And then when I have my responsibilities, recognizing those and addressing them with the energy that they need and giving everything that I have to give to everything I decide to take on. It's a really nice thing to be able to say anything that I do gets the best of my efforts. And that is a place that I really feel like I occupy most of the time. Of course, there are always things that we could be doing better, but very much something that, I'm very proud that I've worked so hard towards, and something that's made my life a lot easier. I think the biggest thing about, all these things we push ourselves to do and the changes we try to make, I always say this, but I reinforce it because it's very true. I don't think that we should do these things out of a sense that we're not good enough or because we're terrible people. It's just that this would simply serve us better and serve the people around us better. If someone can ask me to do something and know I'm going to be honest with them in my response if I can't do it, and know that if I am going to do it, let me restart that. If someone asks me to do something and they can be 100% confident that I'll be honest in my response, so if I can't do it, I will tell them directly. And if I will do it, I will do it to the best of my ability and they'll be happy with whatever I'm doing. That would make me very happy. It made me very satisfied. And I think that would, that's the version of David that I want to be. So that's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm really trying to do. And at the moment, I feel like I'm doing a good job with it. When I don't feel like I'm doing a good job with it, I might come back and listen to this myself to remind myself of what I can be. So if you're going to do something, do it properly. Pick your responsibilities carefully. And when you have responsibilities, do them to the best of your ability. Because if you're doing it, you might as well do it well. That's really all from me today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Whatever you're doing this week, I hope you have a wonderful one.